Hello everyone and welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to make an arrow fold card, and last week I made this triple point card and it reminded me so much of a card that I'd made in the past. So I looked through all my boxes and all my old cards and eventually I found the template. So this is what we made last week, but this is what we're going to make this week. It's an arrow fold card, and I think this card stock is Lost Lagoon. So it shows you it's a while since I made it. I've got all the instructions on the back, and that's what I tend to do. I tend to put my cards away now, and I either write on the back or I do a post-it note and stick it on the inside, because otherwise I end up with lots of little pieces of paper trying to remember which card it was that I made. So now I just find it easier to keep all the information together. And this card, as you can see, it's just made from a normal half sheet of card, and it looks just like a normal card that's going to fit in a medium envelope. And you just score to make these little folds, and it turns out like an arrow. So let me show you how we make it. I'm starting off this time with basic white, and it's the thick one. I'm not sure if I would have been better using the thin one, because this can be a little bit tricky to fold, but we'll see as we go along. And what you need to do is find, this will be the front, and we're going to make a mark at the bottom of the centre of this card. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to use my ruler. Normally I use my grid paper, but I know when I'm videoing I don't get the whole of my grid paper in. So I'm just going to use a little ruler. We know that this card is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4 already, and that's what makes this centre fold. And so I'm going to line it up with the centre fold so that you can see it here. And across the bottom, I'm going to put a mark exactly halfway along. And that would be, let me just see, there it is at 5.5. That would be 2 3/4. So I'm just going along 2.5, 2 3/4. And I'm only doing a little pencil. Okay, I will erase that later. And then down the left-hand side from the centre line and the right-hand side, I'm going to measure halfway down. Now, I'm just going to put the edge of the ruler just on that crease, on that score line, and I'm going to measure 2 1/8. So I've gone across 2. Each one of these little lines is actually a 16th, so we need the second of the lines. So that makes 2 1/8. I'm doing it at that side, and then again at this side. Okay. Next, we're just going to need the trimmer. And I'm not going to trim anything, I'm going to use the score blade in it. If you don't have a paper trimmer that will score, you can use a score board itself, or you could even use a ruler and a scoring tool. Something like, let me just, excuse my reach, something like these little ball tools. You could just use that as well, or even the edge of your bone folder. But I like to do these on the trimmer. So I'm going to make sure my cutting blade is out of the way, and I'm going to score from this mark to the centre. I'm just going to line that up in the track. I'm lining this mark up, oops, and this mark up. I'm just going to make that go all the way to the edge so I can see exactly where that is. There we go. So I've got those 2 lines in the trimmer, and I'm just going to score. And while I've got this card in, I'm also going to score from that centre line down to the middle of the front as well. So I'm just putting it in. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see that, but we have a line here and a line here. I'm going to do exactly the same at this side. So I'm going to go from my little mark, that's at 2 1/8, right to the middle. And I'm going to go from that centre score line down to the middle as well. Let's just make sure that's in the track there. There we go. Okay, and that's all the scoring there is. So I'm going to put that on one side, and I'm going to cut a piece of designer series paper. because on our card we're going to have, fold that in, we're going to have a pattern here, a pattern here and a pattern here. If you wanted to use two different papers, you can certainly do that. You just cut two pieces in exactly the same way as I'm going to show you how to cut. And I've got a piece of paper that you wouldn't actually know what it was from. It's from the Beauty of the Earth Designer Series paper. And I'm going to have a bit of a nautical theme for this card. And I've chosen just the sky. So this we need to cut at 5 1/4 by 4. And I'm just going to take a 4-inch strip off. And I'm doing it lengthwise. I want these clouds to line up across my card. So I'm just going to move that one out of the way. And I'm going to cut this at 4. And then I'm just going to cut it down to 5 1/4. And lining it up, cut that piece off, and then that piece is out of the way. Now, we're going to cut this to make this shape, this triangle here. So what we need to do is make sure you've got it orientated the way that it goes with the card. So it's going to go this way. I'm going to make it so I've got that darker blue at the top. And across the middle, you're just going to find the center line. And this piece is cut at 5 1/4, so that would make 2 5/8. So let's get the ruler, go across. So 2 1/8 is 2 1/2 is 2 4/8. So just 2 after that makes 2 5/8. Okay, so it's like 2 after 2 1/2 and 2 before 2 3/4. And that's the only mark we have to make on that. And we're not going to score it, we're going to cut it. So I'm going to cut from the top right corner down to here. So I've got my score blade now. I'm just going to start part way across so that I don't buckle up the end of the paper. And do exactly the same now from the left hand side right to that little mark we made as well. Move my blade into the middle. Okay, now we're finished with the trimmer all together, so I can get rid of that. So we've now got these 3 pieces, and these pieces are going to be on top of the arrow. So let me show you how we make the arrow. And let's go back to our white piece. I'm just going to erase these little marks because we don't need them anymore, and I don't want to be able to see them on my card either. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to fold my card in half down that centre score line. Oops. And with my bone folder, I'm just going to flatten it or burnish it to make that fold nice and crisp. Now, on this first long line, we're going to bend that under. So I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I'm going to fold it under, and I'm not going to push it hard to start with. I'm just going to do it gently so that the paper doesn't crack or the card doesn't crack. So can you see that's just going to fold under? I'm going to turn it upside down and I'm just going to burnish it. And then this little piece is going to come out. So I'm just going to fold it a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to burnish that one. And then you can see that this is already forming that arrow shape without having to push it too much. I'm going to do exactly the same at this side. So the long line that folds under, it's a little bit easier with the thinner card. It is just because I chose the thicker card for this. It just takes a little bit more manipulation until it thinks, yeah, that's the way I'm going to fold. Okay, and then bottom corner folds up. This is where it can be tricky, just getting it in at that little point there. Okay, just going to squash that down with my bone folder. And there, right. So now these pieces, we're going to fold underneath. It pushes underneath, and it's going to make that beautiful arrow shape. going to go over with my bone folder again. Now, some people leave this undone, but I actually like the pieces glued together because then I find that it stands better, and I find that when it's in the envelope, it's not pushing to get out of the envelope. So I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid glue in here. But you could use tear tape, you could use something, you could even use glue dots, but you could use the tape runner instead. I can't just see where mine is. That's what I was just looking for. I don't know where it is. So I'm using liquid glue anyway. So be careful that you don't get too much glue all over. Don't glue the whole of this triangle here. You only need a little bit. And I just sort of measure, what I need as I'm going along, because I don't want lots of glue oozing out. Okay, and then we just close it. And I'm going to lay it flat, and I'm going to just go over with the bone folder. Now, it might take a second or two just to dry off enough to hold. Glue it at that side as well. Now this will still open, the flap still opens, it's only that triangle that we've glued down. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same again. Excuse me. I'm going to see where this folds over and how much glue I'm going to need on there. I don't want to have too much. I don't want it squidging out at the sides or anything. Okay, I'm going to lay it down. Fold over with my bone folder just to get that glue all the way across the card. Okay. And then let's fold it back. Got a little bit of glue somewhere here. I could feel a little bit sticky. There we are. I'm just going to use my glue eraser. Take that off. Okay. It is a little bit bulky, but it's gonna work just fine. Okay, I'm just gonna put that away, and I'm just gonna pick up my stamp set. Excuse me a second. Here we go. Now, I've decided to use this stamp set. I'm gonna make a masculine birthday card. And when I opened the box, it already had some pieces cut. And so I'm just going to use one of these little lighthouses that I've already pre-cut. So I just stamped it, and it's been cut with the die here. But it's quite an easy one that if you only have the stamp set, it's an easy one to cut out. So I've got that, and I also had, let me just see where my sentiment went. There was a sentiment in the box, and it's disappeared. Oh, where did I put it? Here it is, under here. This sentiment, it's die cut out with this piece, and what I did was I used a sentiment that I thought fitted that really nicely, and that's from the Looking Up suite, the Looking Up card kit, I beg your pardon. Let me just show you. It's from this set, and I use these sentiments a lot. If you've seen many of my videos, you'll see that I use these at Christmas, I use them throughout the year, and I really love how they fit on the tailored tag shape, because this kit was made with these little cutouts for the stamping, and it is that tailored tag punch. So I use this one a lot, and I'm really sad that it's retired, but I'm sure in your stash you're going to be able to find sort of a great little sentiment and something that you can sort of stamp it onto, cut out, either with your scissors or a punch or a die. I'm sure you'll be able to find something. Now that this is dried a little bit, I'm going to go back to those triangles that we had. And I'm going to put, oh, I can't pick them up. I'm going to put these ones just on the inside here. You will have a little border. Let me just close that up. You will have just a little border when it's closed, and that's what you're aiming for. Just a small border all the way around. And I'm using liquid glue just so that I can sort of wriggle it around. If it's not quite straight, it doesn't matter. I can move it about. I find that if I use my stamping seal, oh, that was the word I needed from before, a stamping seal. If I use the stamping seal, sometimes I'll put it down and I can't move it, and it might just be a fraction out of place, but I can't move it along. So I like liquid glue just because it's a little bit more forgiving. Okay, so I just make sure I've got the same kind of border that I've got at the other side. See, if I'd used stamping seal with that, it would have been, the border was a bit too wide and I wouldn't have been able to move it. There we go. Now you can move that so that these little corners join up if you want to, but I like being able to see just a little bit more of the designer series paper at the sides. Okay. Now this piece is our sky piece. I have to look which way it goes. Okay, so I'm going to glue that onto there. And I was saying earlier that you could use 2 different pieces of designer series paper. You could sort of plan to make 2 of these cards and then have one of the designs for this top triangle and the other design that made the left and right triangle. Let me just try and get that straight. The other design on here, and then on your second card it would just be the other way around. You'd have design number 1 here, design number 2 there. So, and that does look nice as well. I just wanted sort of a beachy sea theme, and this was really the only paper that I felt would work today. Okay, so there we are. That's the main arrow card made. It really is easy. If you wanted, you could glue down this. I'm just getting rid of little bits. You could glue down this piece as well so that it stayed flat, but I don't mind it like that. But if you felt that that was going to impede in your envelope or something, you could just glue these little edges down too, and it would stay as an arrow. Okay, now let me just put the lid on that glue because I don't need it for a second. I do need some Stampin' Dimensionals and my little lighthouse. So my little lighthouse is going to go over here, and my sentiment I'm just going to pop on like this. So I think I'm just going to glue this down with my wet glue, but I will use the dimensionals for the sentiment. Okay, now let's just pop this here. I'm going to have it slightly offset. I don't mind that it's going onto the left hand side arrow here. There we go. And I'm going to put my sentiment here. Now what I also thought I might do is use the little set, the little stamp that's got the birds on. And I totally forgot. I should have stamped that really before I glued it on. But let's have a go. Let's see if we can stamp it on there. I've got the tuxedo black and the 3 little birds. And I'm just making sure I've got nothing underneath there and it's all nice and flat. I want to see where my sentiment will be, so I know I've got space just over here. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I've got little bits of glue. I think it's off my glue eraser. Look, it's got lots of little gummy bits on the edges. Usually I go around and I pick all those off, because otherwise they fall off and they end up sort of on your project and on your work desk. Okay, let's stick that down again. There we go. And let's pop this on. I'm just going to put a few dimensionals on just to make it stick. And let's put that over there. I like to still be able to see the arrow piece, but I'm quite happy to cover over just a little bit of it. And there we are. Now this piece, because I folded it back, it's just going to stick out a little bit. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use one of my mini dimensionals and I'm going to pop that underneath there, and then it won't crease. Let's get one of these little ones. I'm going to stick it. I'm going to pop it just under this little piece of the lighthouse. take that backing off. And it's got to go on a dimensional because of course there's that extra bulk from the folded card there. There we are, that's better. Okay. So there's a very simple little arrow fold card, which was just a follow-on from last week's, and it reminded me that I used to make arrow fold cards, and so I thought I'd make one again for you today. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. I know it was quite a quick video today. I didn't think I was going to get a video made because I should really be working. Shh, don't tell anybody. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again really soon. Bye-bye. Bye.